Just how much faith should we put into what strangers tell us? The reason I ask is because of an encounter I had yesterday morning. Someone brought back a most unwanted memory. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to when I was a little girl. The year was 1998. I was 10, and in those days was living with my single mother who was just 27 years old, and my 8-year-old sister Lucy, in a very rural part of California. We stayed in a small house deep in the woods, no phone, relying on a gas-powered generator for lights and sometimes to watch a movie. Mom supported us by going into town to sell weed that she grew on the property. During the weekdays, she would pick us up from school. Weekends, she would task me with watching over Lucy. We had 2 pets, a Jack Russell Terrier named Noodles and a marmalade cat named Bongo, with whom we would play house. Noodles was always game. Bongo, well, he just tolerated it. In the February of that year, we had some heavy rainstorms, and one Saturday it was raining on and off throughout that day. I was lying in bed with a cold, listening to a Madonna cassette and having a good chuckle with my Calvin and Hobbes comics. Every so often, I would check in on Lucy and stoke the fireplace. Around 2, I had passed out longer than intended. The dead quiet snapped me awake. No Lucy shrieking with laughter, or Noodles barking. Just the crackling wood. I looked around the house only to see Bongo warm himself by the fire, dead to the world. I was more frustrated than worried at the time. I had told her not to go out of the house. I saw her rain gear was gone. I put on a brave face and threw on my red raincoat and dark blue boots. I slugged down some cough syrup and brought a whistle. I started my quest to find Lucy. Thankfully, it had stopped raining. Going around the house once, calling her name, then venturing to the creek below our house, trudging through it for a good 20 minutes, blowing my whistle. No luck. I had a sinking feeling, but I was more worried about disappointing my mom than Lucy being lost at that point. With options running out, I took the gravel path behind our house, calling out her name until my lungs retaliated. I recovered from my coughing fit to see the last person on earth I would want to be alone with. 47-year-old Victor Carlisle. Tall and lanky, he had salt and pepper straggly hair, only 4 teeth, was wearing his only pair of stained and tattered blue jeans, his moldy sweater and suit coat. He was never without a whiskey flask. There he was, stumbling around, laughing to himself. He spotted me and offered me his flask, then thought about what he was doing. He laughed and took a huge slug for himself. "Hey, girlie, I saw your little sister and her little doggy." An overwhelming feeling of hope shot through me. "Please, Carlisle, where?" He thought about it for a minute, then signaled vaguely behind him. "It's about a 1/4 mile, but be care—" I tore into the direction where he pointed, not catching the last part of what he was trying to tell me. My heart and feet were pounding, calling her name, eventually coming to a house smaller than ours, more of a shack. Still no sign of Lucy or Noodles. In an act of desperation, I blew on my whistle relentlessly until my lungs couldn't take it anymore. I was overcome by a coughing attack that brought me to my knees, and tears burst from my eyes, fraught with self-loathing for how I had let down my sister and mother. The sound of a chipper bark and my sister's giggling brought me out of my stupor. Lucy and Noodles emerged from the brush next to me. Before she could say hello to me, I grabbed my sister and squeezed her tight. Then, holding her shoulders, staring straight into her eyes, I said, "Never, and I mean never, leave the house without me." Lucy's smile disappeared, and she looked down to the ground, twirling her foot, and answered me in the same sheepish fashion she would give Mom when she scolded her. "I'm sorry. Noodles needed to pee, and then he saw a squirrel and took me with him." I couldn't keep a straight face, and we had a forgiving hug. "Let's get out of here before I catch my death." No sooner had I said that than I felt the first drops of what transformed into a shower. Dark storm clouds cast away the fast-fading sun, leaving little light to see by. I was kicking myself for not bringing, of all things, a flashlight. Mom would be home in 30 minutes. All this worsened the anxiety in my stomach, but I decided to wait for a break in the storm. I'd rather Mom killed me than my cold. I pulled my sister and dog under the eaves, leaning into the house. I can't explain it now, but I felt someone, or something, was watching us. I turned around and looked through the window. The room was lit by a single candle. I could make out the shape of someone sitting down, but then it rose and walked towards the window. The figure was tall and lanky, with a crooked posture, and just stared at us. I hugged my sister close, and with a pleading tone said, "Hey, I'm sorry. We got caught in the storm. Is it okay for us to wait here?" I could see a hand up that waved us in. "No thanks, we don't want to intrude." But it didn't move, just stood at the window. I was at a loss for what to do next. There was no way we were going in, and just then Bongo started yelping, then growled and bared his teeth. I tried to comfort him, but a shrill scream slammed through my heart and I froze. Looking at my sister, then at the figure. Another scream, louder with so much pain in it. Then the figure walked towards the door. I grabbed my sister's hand tightly and tore off down the path back to our house. Bongo ran ahead. The daylight was gone. We had to rely on memory. The gravel was sharp under my feet and I forced out a cry for help. I stumbled and fell down, taking Lucy with me. I busted my knee open on a rock, sending a wave of pain. But I fought to get back up, and with what little strength I had left, I blew on my whistle while Lucy joined me in crying for help. We both ran out of breath. Hoping in vain we had time to rest, I looked behind me. We heard no footsteps, but saw a red glow following us. Loyal Bongo barked and was ready to fight for us. I tried again to get up, but Lucy dug her fingers around my torso and held me down. The red light was drawing closer. A coughing attack hit me, and I held my sister close, positioning myself in front of whatever was behind us. "Lucy, listen. Please listen. You have to run and get help." "No, I don't want to leave you." "You have to go get Mom." "No, I'm scared. Please, don't make me go." "I'll be fine." I pried my sister away from me. Lucy looked behind me. "It's gone." Puzzled, I breathed a sigh of relief. Then I saw the welcome yellow of a flashlight shining on the trees in front of us. Pulling myself up, I heard jogging and my mother crying out for us. The joy it brought us. Mom, we're here!" She rushed to us and we all clung tightly to each other. I couldn't stop crying. "Victor told me where to find you two." "Oh God, what's wrong, baby?" "My knee, Mom, I fell." She lifted me to my feet, had Lucy hold the light, and I used her as support on our walk home. Shortly after we arrived, she put us both in a warm bath. She wrapped my knee and made us spaghetti with some nice rosemary and my favorite pink lemonade. Then she carried me to my room. "Tomorrow you both are in trouble, and that will mean more chores. But that can wait. Tonight, I feel like the nice mom." She put on my favorite Madonna song, then turned to leave. "Mom, I'm sorry I let you down. I fell asleep. Didn't know what else to do but go and look for Lucy." She turned around and gave me a thoughtful look. "Sweetie, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have left you alone. I know I asked too much of a little girl. You were so brave. I'm more mad at Noodles." She left to go read to Lucy. I continued reading my Calvin and Hobbes comic and jamming to my favorite tunes. Soon Bongo walked in and hopped on me. Petting him, I turned off the tape player and let the comforting sounds of the rain send me to dreamland. The moon awoke me. Watching clouds go by its sphere brought a feeling of tranquility. The clock read 3:12 a.m. I smiled at Bongo's snoring. I went to pet him, but he jumped up unexpectedly, looking at the window, put his ears back, and hissed. "What's wrong, boy?" A shadow covered my room. I turned to the window and saw the figure again, with its eyes shining. It put its malformed hand against the glass and stared at me. I could also make out another, taller figure moving up behind the one at the window. It also clawed at the glass. They were like shadows come to life. Their movements were jerky and slow. I was frozen with fear but forced out a cry for help. My mom came rushing in, looking at the window in horror. "Mom, these are the things that we were running from." She rushed back to her room and I followed. She brought out a pistol, checking the barrel as she headed back through my bedroom door. She yelled in a voice I'd never heard before, "Stay back!" as she ran into my room holding the gun with both hands. "Get the fuck away from my house! You come near me or my girls, I'll fucking murder you! Do you understand me? I'll kill you dead!" They moved from the window as my mother shot out in pain, but she must have hit one of them because we heard an excruciating shriek. In panic, afraid to risk running to the car, she collected Lucy, taking us to her room and locked the door. We laid on her bed. She told us she had the safety off as she gripped the pistol and held us with her other arm. We could hear one of them walk around the outside of the house, making a sloshing sound. Noodles, our other guardian, barked with all his might, and Bongo hid under the bed hissing. There would be moments of silence, followed by sounds of them walking around the house, trying to find a way in. Lucy fell asleep in my arms and I rocked her. Mom was still on guard. We were afraid to talk. Then I heard a sound of someone rummaging in our woodshed. Mom and I looked at each other, wondering what could they be doing. Footsteps told us they were at the broken window in my room. Then came the sound of splintering wood. One of them was using the axe against the bedroom door. Lucy cried out. I cradled and shushed her. Mom got ready for a fight. Then suddenly, silence. The first glow of dawn. Everything went quiet, except for the birds chirping. After several minutes of waiting with no sound, we got out of bed and looked out the window. It was an astonishing sunrise, so beautiful and peaceful. No footsteps. Their assault had stopped. We waited for another hour, then we hid under the bed with Bongo as my mother ventured outside cocking the hammer, not sure of what she might find. I held my sister tightly, waiting for the all clear. My mother returned and said, "It's over, girls." Lucy and I both collapsed with exhaustion. I woke up at noon hearing my mother talking with a man. I hobbled into the kitchen to see a sheriff sitting at the table. After closing his notebook and sipping his coffee, he replied, "All right, I'll need to talk to your kids, but that can wait. Be ready to leave in, let's say, a half hour. Sound good?" My mother nodded. The sheriff walked out to have a smoke and inspected the door that still had an axe buried in it. I sat at the kitchen table. Mom kneeled to face me and said, "Honey, wake Lucy. Help her get packed. We're gonna stay at a motel for a few nights. Don't tell Lucy, but a little girl has been murdered. The cops think Victor did it." As soon as this registered, I asked, "But didn't you tell them about last night?" Mom said, "Honey, right now, I'm just glad we're alive and the sheriff hasn't found or busted me for that half-pound of Mary Jane in the greenhouse. They'd take you away from me for sure. Now, get going." We stayed in a motel for a week. Then Mom got a job at the post office and found a nice house in town, where we stayed until I went off to college to study law. I now live in San Francisco and work in the prosecutor's office. I'll be applying to be an assistant DA. My sister is an aspiring horror novelist. Go figure. Mom also moved to San Francisco, got married, and is now a school teacher. Victor is serving a life sentence for the murder of Rebecca Parker. She was a year younger than me and lived half a mile away from us. The cops found her remains in that one house we had been at. She was vivisected with her heart and eyes removed. Victor maintains his innocence. In a way, prison's been the best thing for him since he was forced to stop drinking and is now a Christian. He still says there's some evil force in the house where we found Rebecca, and that we knew about it. He begged us to testify on his behalf, but we kept quiet about it at Mom's insistence, since she was a suspected pot dealer back then and feared the court would look for any reason to put me and Lucy in foster care. Plus, who would believe us? Even so, I regret not having spoken up for him. But Mom wouldn't let me. And now, the point of the question I asked before. The chance encounter with the stranger was this morning, when I was on my normal jog. A woman in her mid-20s stopped me. She was clad in black, deathly pale with dark circles under her bloodshot eyes. She looked at me for a moment, smiled, and said, "They have seen you. They like your smell. You escaped them once, but don't think they won't find you." I never met this woman before, or told this story to anyone. I like to think she was some crackhead, but I can't stop feeling that I'm being watched.